My name is Elena Cross, Lieutenant, United States Air Force. 10 years in Aerospace Command, 3 overseas deployments, and 1 doctorate in mechanical engineering. But none of that mattered in court last Monday. To them, I was just the daughter who left. The one who turned her back on the family business, the town, the legacy. That's how they framed it anyway. The courtroom buzzed low with murmurs. My uncle sat behind the plaintiff table, jaw clenched. My cousin Emily dabbed at invisible tears. My mother, well, she didn't show up until halfway through the proceedings, silk scarf and all, like she'd just stepped out of brunch. They told the judge I'd been estranged, unreachable, uninterested. That I never visited after my father's stroke. That I hadn't even returned his final call. What they didn't tell her was that the number he used had been disconnected months earlier. What they didn't mention was that I only found out he died through a condolence email from a retired Air Force buddy of his. I hadn't even been listed in the obituary. But I sat there, still, composed, in full-service dress uniform. My insignia pinned sharp, my ribbons in place. I said nothing, just waited. Then Judge Lenora Hall, a woman with iron-gray curls and a courtroom reputation that made seasoned lawyers squirm, adjusted her glasses. Her eyes skimmed the files in front of her. Then she looked directly at me. "Lieutenant Cross," she said, her voice clear, almost too calm. "Do you wish to respond?" The room paused. I heard Emily suck in a breath. My uncle shifted in his seat. Even the opposing attorney blinked twice. Because until that moment, I was just Elena, the prodigal daughter, the no-show. Now, I was something else. I was a witness they hadn't counted on, a rank they couldn't ignore. Before I tell you what I said, or what happened next, I want to take you back. Because this didn't start in court. It started months earlier, on a Tuesday, just after sunset, when a stranger showed up at my base with a manila envelope and an unspoken apology in his eyes. I'd just come off a 14-hour rotation, my boots still dusted from the desert field test. I wasn't expecting a delivery, let alone one that required ID verification and a signature. Inside the envelope was a black and white photocopy of a will, dated 6 months before my father's death. My name was there, executor, sole beneficiary of the estate, and scribbled on the bottom in blue ink, in a hand I hadn't seen in years. "This is the version," I watched him sign. "You'll need a lawyer. T. No return address. No phone number. Just that." I sat down on the edge of my bunk, envelope still open in my lap. The barracks were silent. Outside, I could hear the wind slice across the asphalt. I read the document again. Then again. Because this version, the one in my hands, said something very different from what my cousin had told me over the phone 2 weeks earlier. That Dad left everything to the company. That the house was being sold. That I wasn't mentioned. I remember asking her if he'd left a letter. She'd said no. Not even a post-it. I hadn't believed her then. I didn't know how much I didn't believe, not yet. The next morning, I booked leave, packed a duffel, and caught a flight back to Georgia. It had been 4 years since I'd stepped foot in Pine Hollow. 8 since I left for the academy. Nothing about the place felt like home anymore. But I wasn't there for nostalgia. I was there for answers. I arrived in Pine Hollow just past noon. The air still smelled like damp earth and engine oil. Main Street hadn't changed. Same rusting diner sign, same blinking yellow light that didn't need to be there anymore. I rented a car, drove past the old church, the hardware store, the blinking marquee of the local theater that hadn't changed films since summer. The house sat at the end of a gravel road, wrapped in tall pines and stubborn silence. It looked smaller than I remembered. Older. The paint chipped at the corners. The front steps sagged inward like a sigh. I didn't knock. The key Dad had mailed me 5 years ago still worked. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with something sweet and spoiled. Dust lay thick across the mantel. A single photo remained, my academy graduation, framed slightly askew. I stared at it for a long time. Then I started looking. In the study drawer, bank statements with new account numbers. In the safe, old letters, yellowed with time. And under the floorboard, he once told me to pry loose if things ever got real bad. I found a flash drive. No label, just a strip of blue tape. It held a scanned version of the same will I'd received, dated, notarized, and witnessed by 2 of his former employees. And a video. I watched it from the dining room table on my old laptop. Dad sat on the porch swing, bundled in a wool cardigan, his voice thin but firm. "If she's watching this," he said, "it means someone's trying to bury her again." He paused, took a breath. "I told them. I told Tom and Marshall and every damn lawyer I hired. The house is Elena's. The company? Sell it. I don't care. But the land, the house, the stuff that matters, that's hers." He looked off camera, like checking if someone was listening. "She didn't abandon us. I told her to go. Told her to get out and live bigger than this town." He nodded once, firm. "Don't let him take that away from her." I didn't cry. Not then. I copied everything onto a second drive, sealed it in an envelope, and drove straight to the one lawyer in town who hadn't played golf with my uncle every Sunday for the last decade. Her name was Corinne Vale. Sharp, unsentimental, and known locally as the Viper in Heels. She wore her gray hair in a braid down her back and didn't shake my hand, just motioned to the chair across from her desk. She read through everything twice. Didn't say a word for nearly 15 minutes. Then she leaned back, folded her hands. "Your father's original will is legally binding," she said. "The version they filed with probate? That's forged." "How sure are you?" I asked. She turned the will sideways, tapped the signature. "This K here," she said. "That's not your dad. That's someone copying his hand. And poorly." That's when it hit me. They hadn't just tried to erase me. They'd tried to rewrite him. Corinne filed a formal contestation the next day. The process took weeks. My leave ended, so I returned to base. But every evening, I'd check my inbox for updates. Each new piece of evidence stitched the real story together. My cousin Emily had been granted power of attorney 3 months before Dad's final hospitalization, supposedly to help pay medical bills. Instead, she'd signed over assets, shifted accounts, and hired a lawyer through her boyfriend's father's firm. That's when the new will surfaced. Filed late. No witnesses. No video. Just a clean break from the version I held. I knew then this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was methodical. It was theft, wrapped in grief and sealed with polite signatures. When the court date arrived, I flew back in uniform. They didn't expect me to show. And they definitely didn't expect what I brought with me. The courtroom was fuller than I expected. Not just family. Town regulars. Old business partners. A few people who remembered my father as more than a line on a balance sheet. They filled the benches quietly, whispering in sympathy toward the wrong side. My uncle sat at the front, shoulders squared, expression rehearsed. Emily wore black, though the hearing wasn't a funeral. Her mascara ran just enough to look sincere. My mother sat 2 seats down from her, posture perfect, hands folded, eyes fixed straight ahead. She didn't look at me once. I took my place beside Corinne, laid my folder neatly on the table, and waited. Their attorney opened first. He painted me as distant, career-obsessed. A daughter who chose jets over family. He emphasized my absence, my silence, my failure to return home when my father got sick. He mentioned the funeral I failed to attend. He let that hang in the air like a verdict. No one corrected him. Then Corinne stood. She didn't raise her voice or dramatize a thing. She walked the court through dates, documents, signatures, timelines. She presented the original will, the notarization, the witnesses, the bank records showing abrupt changes, the power of attorney filed while my father was medicated and barely conscious. Then she played the video. My father's voice filled the room. Thin, steady, undeniable. No one cried, not even my mother. But something shifted. Emily's leg bounced beneath the table. My uncle stared straight ahead, jaw tight. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowed. Then came the phone records. Dozens of missed calls. All to a number 1 digit off from mine. A number registered to a prepaid phone activated 3 months before my father's death. Corinne let that sit. Someone changed the contact, she said quietly. Someone with access. Silence. The judge flipped through the exhibits slowly, methodically. When she finally looked up, her gaze passed over my family like they were furniture. And then it landed on me. Lieutenant Cross, she said. The title echoed. Emily stiffened. My mother blinked. Would you like to speak? I stood. My father raised me to tell the truth, I said. Even when it's uncomfortable. I explained the missed calls, the funeral time that was changed without notice, the letters I sent that were never answered, the way my father encouraged me to leave, to aim higher, to not apologize for ambition. I didn't abandon him, I said evenly. I was removed. I looked toward my family, not with anger, just clarity. And I didn't come here for revenge, I added. I came here because my father trusted me to protect what he built, including his name. The judge nodded once. That was all she needed. Court recessed for 30 minutes. Emily bolted from the room. My uncle followed, phone already pressed to his ear. My mother stayed seated, staring straight ahead, as if motion might crack whatever composure she had left. When we returned, the decision came quickly. The revised will was invalid. The original stood. The estate reverted to me. And an investigation into fraud was formally opened.
No Gabel Islam.
No speech. Just fact. Outside, reporters waited. I gave no comment. I didn't owe anyone an explanation anymore. As I walked down the courthouse steps, my mother finally spoke. You didn't have to do this, she said sharply.
I stopped. Turned.
Yes, I replied. I did. I didn't wait for her answer. Some truths don't need agreement. They just need to be said. I didn't move into the house right away. For weeks, I drove past it every morning, coffee in hand, radio low, windows cracked. Sometimes I parked across the street and just sat, engine humming beneath me. I wasn't ready to unlock the front door and pretend things were fine. Grief doesn't always ask for your permission, but it still waits for the right key. When I finally did walk in, it felt like entering a room mid-conversation. Like something had been paused too long and wasn't sure how to start again. In the attic, I found a box labeled EC. Inside, my childhood sketchbooks, my junior flight log, a photo of me and Dad at the museum in Dayton. He'd written on the back, "She'll fly farther than I ever did." I didn't cry until I saw the letter. It wasn't dated, just folded once, tucked into an envelope with my name in his handwriting. If you're reading this, it means I ran out of time before I could fix what they broke. But I never stopped watching, never stopped being proud. Don't let them rewrite what you are. And don't let this place turn cold. Bring something warm back to it. So I did. 6 months later, the house reopened. Not as a home, but as a space for women like me. Women who'd served, who'd been chewed up by duty and silence and expectations they never signed up for. I didn't call it a shelter. It wasn't charity. It was a reset button. We called it the Crosswind House. Every Friday, I'd walk the woods behind the barn with a new arrival. We'd talk about grief that didn't get ceremonies, about how service rewrites you, how family doesn't always mean safe. And on quiet mornings, I'd sit on the porch swing with a cup of black coffee, watching the mist roll across the treeline like breath. I kept the house modest. No press.
No plaques.
Just purpose. Emily tried writing once. A short, clipped email asking if we could talk privately. I never responded. My mother sent a birthday card that year. No return address.
No apology.
Just a signature. Her maiden name. I didn't reply to that either. Some people try to circle back once the damage is clean. But not everything needs repair. Some things are meant to be left where they fell. But one morning in late October, a young woman walked up the gravel drive. Maybe 20. Nervous posture. Tightly wound braid. She stopped at the porch steps and cleared her throat. You Elena Cross? She asked. I nodded. My name's Becca, she said. I knew your dad. My mom worked at the shop back in the day. She handed me a folded photo. My father. standing beside a girl, maybe 5, with flyaway curls and paint on her overalls. On the back, it said, "Future pilot, just like EC." "I've been trying to figure out where to land next," she said softly. "He told me once that if I ever got lost, you'd help people find their way." I studied her face. Not broken. Just looking for a place that saw her fully. I opened the screen door. "Well," I said, voice steady, "we've got room on the porch. And strong coffee, if you don't mind it black." She smiled. Stepped inside. The door clicked shut behind her. And for the first time in years, the house felt right. Not reclaimed. Just finally, honestly mine.